big level of trust. And what happened was, in several cases, these are just a few of them, that these companies actually offered to invest. And why did they want to invest in these companies? Not only because they solved real, actual problems that these companies had at their own premises. That's what the motivation was in most cases. But in some of the cases, they said, you know what, we want to be your distributor in Israel. We want to be your distributor in Europe or whatever. And that's another motivation for companies such as you see behind you, behind me at least, to see that these things actually work on a pure, practical basis. Can you, let's see, please again. Working? Okay, wonderful. It's probably my finger then, right? It's me. It's not the clicker. Okay. Oh, wonderful. So my last thing before we open this up for discussion, my call to action is this. It's easy to go and work and operate in the Silicon Valley, in Tel Aviv, in New York, and in Boston, where the ecosystem exists. It's super difficult to create one. But if you do create one, you create so much power and so much affinity that it's worthwhile. So my call to you is come to Haifa, but with your call to yourselves is this can be done. Creating an ecosystem from almost zero is possible at a very short time. All you need is the right people, the right collaboration, and the right ideas. So I'll open this up to discussion. Anyone that wants to ask a question online or off, please let me know. Questions, anyone? Okay, so either I was very unclear, or I was super, super clear. I'm scared of both. No questions at all.
One of the things that we try to promote in Europe is to bring companies from the foreign market to Haifa in order to help them to get access to the ecosystem in Israel.
This is a very important point. When I say come to Haifa, it's not because I want Haifa to be the center of the world or the focus of the world, etc. It's not, it never will be. What is very interesting for everyone is to take this idea and make it more global. So, regardless if you want to branch out on your own and you want to create your own independent ecosystem in Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, in Colombia or elsewhere, regardless of whether you want to do that, I think it's very clear that everyone can learn from each other and everyone can benefit from collaboration with each other. So the more collaborative our nature is, and the more we look at the bigger picture, and not only if I miss one deal in favor of another, and look at the bigger picture as what we're raising together, the more effective the ecosystem is. Because markets are global, there's no news there. Startups look for global markets, even if they do get a big customer in Israel or in one place in the US and one place in Europe or the Far East, they're always looking for to expand, and that's the opportunity for all of us here. That's our motivation here. So thank you, everyone. If there are no further questions, I'll just welcome you to Haifa today and to our premises. Thanks for coming.
Just one.
Oh, sure.
How are you sustainable? How are you sustainable?
So, very simple, very short question, how are we sustainable? Basically, how do you earn your money, for goodness sake? So it's a good question. And the short answer is that we're not sustainable currently without a lot of support by the Israeli Innovation Authority. The Israeli Innovation Authority actually took a chance on a new concept, which we created over here in Haifa. and has provided us 4 years of, let's call it startup money, in order to create an ecosystem which is strong enough for it to be sustainable. And the way we're trying to make it sustainable is by creating a de-risk portfolio which we invest in and which we ask partners together with us to invest in. And our main model is an equity appreciation, just like a VC. But not only, we also provide services and value-added services in addition, such as the supercomputer over here, real infrastructure, business development, and connections that a small startup, talented, the people as they may be, cannot do by themselves. So it's a great question. Thanks for that. Okay.
Thank you very much, Hayon, for your brilliant presentation. I don't really thank you. I'm not going to fail on technical issues. Again, I would like to thank Hayon, his crew for these wonderful activities that they are giving us. Special thanks to Daphne and Dov as well for the fabulous Zoom equipment that they kindly granted us for today. My lecture today is going to be about a small issue which is related to the innovation model that we developed, Kobe and myself, in the last years. And I'm going to start by some of the points that mentioned by Hayon. For example, the fact that they are, how you said that, Hayon, that you're all of the above when you're speaking about, incubator and accelerator. I think that you're above all, which is describe much better what you do.
Maybe I'm still trying to figure out how to coin it in a very short term. If you can help me out on this, I'll be helpful.
I'm more sharpshooter. I try my best. Okay, so Hayon said that developing a new ecosystem, innovation ecosystem where it not exist is not easy. Yes, most of our capital cities, most of our towns are not Tel Aviv or San Francisco, not Silicon Valley, not New York. We don't have advanced stock exchange around us or sophisticated angel investment forums. And this is the case in most of the countries that Kobe and myself are working with. I'll just give you a brief description of the foundation that led to our Pentagon model that I mentioned. Kobe and I started in a very, very different way. After many years in the army, Kobe came to the startup arena and started developing his own companies, and he thought that he's successful and decided to move into Europe. While going to Europe, while working worldwide, he understood that something is wrong with his system. In parallel, I was working many years abroad and came to Israel and tried to export the Israeli innovation model abroad, and it didn't work. It's not working because some of the things that we are very proud about here in the Israeli ecosystem, such as the development of the R&D, the research and development of startups, are good. We can even, in some of the cases, manage to manufacture a good product or service. But we're failing all the time in the sales, marketing, and business development. We're not so good at that. We're not so good as the American, we're not so good as the European, we're not so good as many, many other nations in the world. So, from my point of view, I developed what I'm calling the customer-oriented entrepreneur, meaning a vision that is placing not my product or service in the center, and of course not myself, my ego in my company, but the customer, the client, the territory that I'm going to sell, and all that arena. And it makes much more sense because if we're going to take our ego out of the equation, we will be much more successful. It's going to be likely for us to move in those markets. So when we're starting to speak about developing a national innovation ecosystem, we should not start and implement our model, but we must first learn what's going on. I'll give you an example. I'm sure, Santiago, you know the open innovation vision of the Americans and the way that they're trying to implement it in different countries. The Inter-American Development Bank, known as BID, Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, granted a nice amount of money to Panamanian funds in order to create open innovation in Panama. And it's not working because Panamanian and Latin in general are not so open in the way that they're communicating. They try to keep something for themselves. They are proud of what they're doing. And the way that we're sharing knowledge in other societies is not the same in Latin America. It's part of culture. It's very part of culture. Like, for example, we know that in many countries, people are not very open to take decisions. They're trying to leave the decision making to someone superior. And by doing that, you're not developing your middle management so strong. So what I'm saying is that when we're going to different markets, it might be Sri Lanka, it might be Colombia, and of course it's the case of Myanmar, we're starting everything by research, and we are searching for the local islands of excellency. Each country, whatever it is, each society, has something that they excel in. And we have to start to develop it. We have to understand what it is. In many cases, it's not so obvious. I'll give you two examples. For many years, Nicos, people from Nicaragua, were very famous for phone frauds. During the era of the phone cards, they were expert in hacking all phone systems, and they made fortune about it. I think you're familiar with it. But you will take this expertise and convert it to something positive, such as develop something positive in the telecommunication arena. We have over there an island of excellency. The Dominican Republic, which I had the pleasure to live for many years, is suffering from blackouts for decades. Poor infrastructure, poor transmissions, they are not paying for the electricity. The situation is really bad. So most of the companies started to develop what they need in order to be successful in their electricity. So there are a lot of generators, there are a lot of battery banks, and there is an expertise that developed in the country for this case, especially. So if we can take all those diesel engineers, those battery technicians and experts, we can build like a nucleus of or a cluster of professionals in this area. So while we're going to a country, we're starting by developing and finding out what is the island of excellency, and around it, we're starting to develop all the model. In the model, we call it Pentagon. We have 5 prongs. And the 5th, I'm going to go one by one of them. It's going to be that. Okay, great. So first we have the entrepreneurs. They are the most important people in the business, aren't they? They are starting by developing their vision, their idea. They have an idea, or maybe something more than just an idea, maybe a prototype, maybe a product already made in one way or another, and they're struggling to go to the next level. They need to have some cooperation, like in a place like this one. One point of cooperation is the second prong, which is the industry. The industry that can benefit from this invention. The industry that can contribute to me, facilities, location, labs, engineering, know-how, machinery, and a playground for me to test. Then we have the academy. Local academy, it can be a university, it can be a local college, or even a regional or city high school. This, for example, was the case that we did in two cities in Albania, in Timez and in Podgoricas, I think that's the name. Over there, they didn't have a lot of things to do, and they didn't have a lot of sophisticated schooling system. So we worked with what we had, which was the little high school, like vocational school, and we built everything around it. I did it once again many years ago in Yaoundé, Cameroon, in the Polytechnic over there, and it works perfectly. The fourth player is capital. Capital is money. Money is it's not only banking. Capital is coming from many directions. Capital can be from angel investors, from the money of the entrepreneur themselves. It can be risk funds in different levels, and in some of the cases, even institutional investors. This money is what can help us develop and continue our business. And it can lead us during the time before we're having sales, and when we're having sales in order to scale up to the next level. Okay, and the fifth prong of this system is the government. It can be either local government, it can be state, it can be federal or municipal. The importance of the government is important in most of the cases because they're placing the legal frame, they're placing the incentives for us as investors to start working with. And they are the ones that are all the time giving us support in what we need. They are also coordinating all the players, bringing them together to the table, allowing and facilitating. Remember, the most important role of the government is not just to charge us taxes, it's to facilitate and regulate. And once governments are aware of their vision, of their position, of their needs, that's what they're doing. Okay? So once we have all those five players together on the same table, we have to start moving them to the same direction. And this is, again, a bit difficult because not all the players are seeing the same shared goal as all of us. It can be the government that think, hey, how can I make money out of this invention? How can we charge some taxes on the royalties that are going to be generated here? The investors are thinking on fast round of their money. Some of them are thinking about the traditional banking models, such as lending money, saving a loan mechanism. They are not aware to the possibility of working with risk funds. As I mentioned in this conversation, the Innovation Authority and their way of thinking of this place as placing some money over here in order to help to foment the startup arena. Foreign governments have to think the same way. Each country that has its own innovation authority, like Impulso from Colombia, have to look at that. How can they place some money? Usually it's not a huge amount of money, distributed between many companies, and helping those companies pass the first steps, the big steps. And the Israel Innovation Authority have what the previous CEO mentioned, Avi Hasson, which some of you know him. He's saying that the Innovation Authority is the only agency which is risk ladder, meaning they allow to take risks. They take small risks in many companies, and if some of the companies are failing, the other one that are succeeding will pay for the other ones. And and the one that are already failed, it's not a complete failure. Remember that each startup with 5 persons that failed, we have 5 professionals that has been graduated in a small school, which they can progress to the next one, and they can create their own startups and not repeat the same mistakes again and again and again. Okay. So this is about the model itself. Some questions until this point? If no questions, I'm going to continue by describing a bit the model that we developed for Myanmar. Because we built this model together, I just wanted to emphasize some points that, from my side, is very, very important. When we are building this ecosystem in a specific place, we have three challenges. One is to attract foreign startups to be part of this ecosystem. If we're taking, for example, undeveloped countries that would like to enhance the innovation in their place, one of the things that we are trying to do is to attract investors and startups from other places in order to open their operation in this place. One of the instruments that the government allocates is grants. So one of the things that we are doing, for example, in some places, we are trying to see if the government, they have some instruments to raise money for the startups from their own in order to open the operation in their place. For example, I can take a very unique place in Europe that is doing that in a very huge amount of capital that they got from Brazil, is Poland. Poland got from the EU 82.5 billion euro for innovation. So the government decided to build venture capital that managing 80% of the capital from Brazil in order to help startups to bring their technology to the market. But not only startups from the domestic market, they bring startups from abroad. They call that Poland Prize. 100 companies from all over the world can get 150,000 euro in order to start building their operation in Poland, Warsaw, Krakow, or in Warsaw. This is one of the key points. The second challenge is the corporates. The corporates, they have needs, they have challenges, they have requirements. And one of the things we are trying to do is to see if there is any technologies that is already exist in the market in order to help them to build the connection between startups to corporates. But once we don't see that there's any startups that specialize in AI, medical device, energy, or other fields, we promote this model to other countries via our network. In GVI network, we have 30 partners all over the world. So we take this model and we promote it globally in order to attract other startups to collaborate with corporates. So in each vector that you see here, there's connection not only to the domestic market, there is a lot of connection between these sectors to other markets, and this is the unique concept that we built together with Gabriel, in order that, for example, Myanmar can get access not only to Israel companies, can get access to all 30 partners that we have in 30 countries in the world that can bring their innovation to Myanmar, in agri-tech, in digital health, or other sectors. And so this is only some points that I just wanted to emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you, Kobe. You really completed the vision in a very brilliant way. Now I'd like to dedicate the next 10 minutes to expand a bit about the model that we have developed in and for Myanmar. Unfortunately, our partners from Myanmar, which is the MCF, Myanmar Computer Federation, could not make it for the session today, but I think that we can loyally represent them here, and the ambassador himself. We have the pleasure of having the ambassador of Myanmar here with us. Ambassador, would you like to address us? The ambassador is a very high person. He's a typical Burmese, which are not very keen to stay on stage. So The case in Myanmar started with the friendship that Kobe had for a long time with the Moren Givor, the Israeli ambassador, Amy and Gon. They were together in the army, right? And we started to discuss with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel about different ways to help some of the countries that they would like to assist. And they pointed out several countries, and Myanmar was one of those countries, that the Israeli government would like to assist in some way in building their ecosystem, rather than in any other way. At this stage, another Israeli company already approached the embassy and the Myanmar Computer Federation and offered some solutions, which were a bit complex, complicated, stiff, and didn't went very well with the local mindset. So we started by, as I mentioned before, learning what's going on. What do we have in the country? What do we have in Myanmar from the point of view of academic, universities, vocational schools, boarding schools? What's going on from the international vision? How many international companies are present in Myanmar? What are they doing? Are they just manufacturing using cheap labor, or they're doing something more than that? Do they have anything to do with innovation? Are they implementing innovative technologies in the countries? We checked out for the local companies and the vision of some of the local business persons. What are they doing? How they are going to develop it? In what area are they investing? We try to identify what's going on in the angel investment arena. Are there any local investors? What are they investing in? What kind of budget do they have for investment? What percentage of the GDP is going for R&D? All those questions that some of them you can get out from looking at the World Economic Forum's details and the World Bank statistics and the CIA fact book and so on. But some of them require an in-depth study of the country. Just go, sit, talk with the people, understand, interview people from the government, and interview many people in the local government. And you get into results, you get to an understanding, you understand what's going on in the country. And based on that, we started to develop the model. The first months of the project were to visit the government entities one by one and try to recruit them to join the effort, to understand what they can get out as a benefit, not financial benefit, as a benefit from joining the gang, from joining this innovation center. So going ministry after ministry, in some of the cases together with the ambassador, in some of the cases with the guys from the MCF, etc., we increased our knowledge base tremendously, and we also managed to get some intentions. I cannot say more than intention from those companies, from those government officials to participate in one way or another in the project. The next stage, which unfortunately we could not continue because we had a change of government in the country, was about to go to the public sector, to the private sector, and understand what they can get out of participating in such idea. Meaning to visit companies, to ask them about the challenges, and try from those challenges to build solutions. By the way, this is something that we're doing a lot. I can tell you that in my humble company, I'm doing it today with some companies in the mining sector in Peru and Chile. We we are placing like a landing page, like a website for challenges, meaning dear industry leaders in the area of mining, please let us know what are your main problems, your main challenges. In the mining industry, it can be something like machines are operated in harsh conditions. They are not controlled very well. They are old machines without any sensor, and we don't know when the machine is broken. Broken machine can paralyze a mine for months until you bring it and replace it with piece down. Companies that are working in wells, for example, here in the Dead Sea, they have pumps around the Dead Sea that are pumping water in order to dry out the salt and later on harvest the salt out of the pump. Some have to go manually with the truck and place fuel on those pumps, tanks of the pumps. And they didn't have any mechanism to know what's the level of fuel in the tanks and if they can change the schedule. So by receiving all those challenges, we can start asking the industry here in Israel, what do we have as a solution for those types of challenges? We can go and do scouting for new technologies. And the solutions are being collected directly from the Israeli provider. It can be not an Israeli one, it can be European, as in the case of Kobe's companies. And then go and they're connected directly to the company who are asking for the solution, and they can interact directly and see how can they solve this challenge. Okay? So the very same thing is being done in a country like Myanmar. I can tell you that some of the negotiations between us, especially with the government, were about the location of the center. Is going to be in Yangon or in any other city. There are some cities that they have more needs. And we have to decide, it's like we're going to Tel Aviv or we're going to Haifa. We're going to place the innovation center in a far city without any facilities around. It might be better because the cost is lesser. We can get much more personnel. But are they qualified enough? Those are questions that have to be asked in all those stages. And I think that the best way to do it is in an open discussion with government, with the decision makers, and again, we can achieve those types of cooperation mainly based on those types of understanding. Questions, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, please, Mr. Ambassador.
Your main task is to coordinate between people who have problems and who have a solution for those specific problems. Is that your main function?
It's much more than that. The basic idea is to develop locally an ecosystem, meaning to start with the local startup that you have in your country and with them alone and show them the way that we're doing it. So one of the ways to do it is, let's have a discussion between the local startup, in your case the Sri Lankan startups, and the public and the private sectors, the industries that are working in the country. And not only in Colombo, all over the country. So imagine yourself that, you know what, let's take the case that we have right now in front of us. It's not a secret that Sri Lanka, the country of our honorable ambassador, decided to go on a remodelation of the old airplanes, the combat plane made and sold by the aircraft industry many years ago.
and the Israeli aircraft industry gained the tender again for the remodelation. I'm sure that if we could participate, be part of this, we could sit with the local entrepreneurs, local business people in Colombo and understand what they have locally, machinery, equipment, know-how, technologies. And I'm sure that we can at least do 20 to 40, 50% of the project locally and leave this money in Sri Lanka without paying it to a foreign country. So this is possible only in cases where you have an open discussion like that. So let's say that we're going to place, in your case, a kind of challenge page in a secure location in the internet, and the Sri Lankan Air Force can place listed demands. We need remodelation of wings. We have need for pneumatic system repair. We have hydraulic system. We have fuel system. All the systems that we have in the plane and all the problems that they have in Israel. So instead of sending it to be done here in Israel or by Israeli technicians in Sri Lanka, you can identify a huge bank of Sri Lankan professionals that can provide the service. Maybe with the supervision of someone that knows these planes from these crews and on, and maybe even we can share and sell and participate with this knowledge so it will be kept in the country. So this is the idea. The idea is to develop the country. And let me please, if you touch this point, I'm going to explain something which is not very known. For that, I'll have to go up the stairs here, just to show my point. The World Economic Forum divided the world into 3 steps, 3 layers of countries. There are countries that are resource-oriented. Those are countries that are built from the ground, meaning mining and agriculture. They're not manufacturing anything, nothing like that. Most of those countries are what we're calling third world countries. Countries that are in development, which is a clean word for underdeveloped countries. In the middle layer, we have countries that are innovation-oriented. Efficiency-oriented. They are working with their hands. They are manufacturing. They are the ones that are making our suits, our clothes, our machineries, and they are not using much of their brain for these stages. In the upper level, they are the innovation-oriented countries. And the innovation-oriented countries are the ones that are working with their brains. The ones that are developing intellectual property. If there's one sentence that I want you to get out from this session to your respective countries, is that a country that is not developing intellectual property is doomed to misery. With your permission, I'm going to repeat it. A country that does not develop intellectual property is doomed to misery. Meaning the only way for countries to move out of the groundwork, agriculture and mining, and move out of cheap labor, of shoes and textile manufacturing, is by working on innovation, is by developing innovation in the country. And what we're trying to do is to assist in our humble power to develop those types of innovation in your countries. So it's not going to be Israeli innovation or American innovation. It's going to be Sri Lankan, it's going to be Colombian, it's going to be Burmese, Bulgarian, or any other country innovation. By doing so, it's not giving you a fish, it's going to be to give you a fishing rod for you to fish forever. And I think that that is going to be the most important thing that we can get out of this session today. Help us help you develop your own innovation system. Okay? Okay? Yeah? So I think we're about time for a short coffee break, right? And after the coffee break, we'll come back for a session, interesting session with the Chief Innovation Attaché of Netherlands in Israel. She will be speaking over Zoom, and I look forward to hearing from her. Thank you.
Going back.